Now, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Hold on one second again. I've got too many things going on here.
Oh, no problem. We got a lot of chips going on over here, so tell us if you hear chips more than you hear talking.
Okay. So where are you guys at?
The pretzels.
Oh.
They're pretzels. Sorry.
Well, I was trying to wolf down a piece of key lime pie real quick before you were going to call. So I'm in the same.
Oh. Thanks.
So where are you guys? Where'd you guys pull over? Where are you heading from, and where are you heading to?
We're somewhere in the awful desert.
Somewhere in the awful California desert. We just did like a short little San Diego and Arizona tour, and now we're heading back home.
Cool. And you guys were in Albuquerque, is that right? Recently?
No, we were in Phoenix and Scottsdale.
Phoenix, Flagstaff, and San Diego.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. The life of a musician.
All the wonders we get to witness.
A bunch of people stuck in a van.
Yep, eating pretzel.
That's right. Well, it's nice to meet you guys, and nice to just briefly have a conversation with you.
Yeah, you too.
As you could tell by the review, I was pretty. I was impressed, to say the least, with the album. I mean, it was, and I think I mentioned at the end of the review that I haven't been listening to that kind of artful rock in a while. I put my OK Computer album and some other things like that away a while back, but it was really cool stuff. And I guess the reason I wanted to talk to you is, like, where does that whole vibe come from? I mean, you know, I don't think that's as common a sound as, let's say, you know, the whole trendy thing with indie rock and, you know, the surf guitars and all that stuff. And,
right.
And I guess when you listen to different kinds of music, you know, your antenna goes up and you get kind of primed for what you're going to hear, you know, whether, for example, if Ty Segall or the OCs are going to play and it's that kind of thing, you know, it's going to be different than your kind of music. You know, I think your music feels a little bit more, I hate to sound like this, a little bit more thoughtful, I think. Even though their music is just as thoughtful, but it's in a different way. But I think it primes you, you know, to kind of listen in a different sort of way, because I don't know, your stuff just sounds more cinematic and just kind of, you start thinking of things, and so where does that come from a writing standpoint? Like, what was your parents listening to at your house? I mean, what, you know, where did that come from?
Well, first of all, those are all wonderful things.
Yeah,
like, you know, a young group that just put out a record that like, which is kind of the stuff that we were trying to do, is do something a little bit different, and to hear the feedback is really wonderful. So I'll start with that.
Yeah.
Cool.
But so we carry on.
Okay. I think we all definitely have very, very different tastes in music. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, for me, I grew up listening to a lot of, like, older, like, Fleetwood Mac and Jefferson Airplane and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and all that. Both my parents were hippies, and my mom went to Woodstock, and so I kind of grew up listening to all of that, you know, old, like, rock and really a lot of folk and poetry.
Right.
I think that's kind of what I grew up listening to, and a lot of, like, very strong female fronted bands, like, you know, like Stevie Nicks and Grace Slick and Etta James and Anita Baker and Nina Simone, all of those, like, very strong female fronted outfits.
Yeah, and that's a great source right there. And I don't think I have met anybody whose parents were at Woodstock, first of all. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool in and of itself. No, you can, I always get curious about what people listen. Sometimes it doesn't translate. Like, I'll talk to some punk rockers and you find out they're really into the Beach Boys or whatever. And it doesn't always like, it kind of, yeah, oh, really, but I'm surprised you didn't bring up any like British sounds, because I think inherent in some of the kind of music you write, you don't really hear a kind of an underbelly of like blues rock or anything, which is kind of the underbelly of a lot of 60s rock and all that. It's a little bit more pristine, I guess. I don't know. A little bit more orchestral sounding, and but it's definitely what I really enjoyed about it was I've enjoyed Kate Bush, and I know people probably have brought up Kate Bush and Wyoke and Tori Amos and things like that with you.
Yeah.
But the thing I liked about your band's take on your music was that I heard those elements of like, when I said in an email to you, but like Radiohead and kind of that 90s post-rock stuff. Some of the pretty melodies, I thought of, songs like Let Down, off OK Computer, and for some reason I thought of the Beatles. There's a melody in I Want You right before the She's So Heavy refrain that it has a certain cadence and a certain stair-steppy quality that a lot of people use because they've been inspired by the Beatles, whether it's White Fence or Ty Segall, or even you hear it in heavy metal, Mastodon. But I heard that sometimes in your guys' stuff, and it just, it's hard to describe what it feels like, but it's a really trippy sound, It's a really, art rock is the only way you could define your stuff, I think. I think Baroque pop that I mentioned in there, I just threw that in there because that's what people call your stuff. But it's just art rock. It's just real trippy, and I don't know if you're into Bowie, but
oh yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah, but that whole side of the rock thing where it's a little bit more presented as a performance art. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. That's what is really cool about your sound, and I hope people appreciate it because it's kind of played up, instead of played down like some bands do. And I like all kinds of music, don't get me wrong, but
Rob and I both share a love for Pink Floyd, and that was kind of that and the Hendrix albums.
Oh yeah,
it's on me, and like I really like an elaborate recording and a lush production. So every time I get a chance to do something, I'm trying to make like a cross of Wish You Were Here and Abbey Road.
Oh,
like electric.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
If I get those marks, then I'm good. Like nothing else matters, really.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah,
and any guitar stuff that we do, he's brilliant at bringing in really complementary bass playing. So I feel like I'm always like trying to rip off David Gilmour, and he's gonna like by default be like, all right, fine, I guess I'm gonna Roger Waters stuff this.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I could hear that because I could hear your, that you care more about not the quantity of notes, but just what the notes are doing and not riffing around, playing Mr. Lead, but and the bass sound in Porcupine Sheet. The bass sound is awesome. I looked up you guys on YouTube and saw that live performance and that really dirty bottom bass. It was just really cool. I hope I get a chance to see you guys live sometimes when you guys are out my way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So did you guys? I read up on you guys a little bit and on you, Zoe, and I hate to say I'm not. I don't think I've seen one episode of Vampire Diaries, but or the originals. I guess that's not my thing. But how did that come about? I mean, that was really good for you guys at Fangs. But how did they find out about you? Was the song written for a vampire theme, show, or did it exist already, or how did that come about?
Well, we were really fortunate in that we had our song Fangs remixed early a couple years ago, and that remix was done almost specifically for the So You Think You Can Dance, that dance competition show on Fox. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, we were then fortunate enough to be able to sign with a licensing company, and basically what they're doing is we give them our songs, and they kind of shop them around to different genres of television and film and whatever, in hopes that music supervisors that are working on these programs who are looking for different new music in hopes they'll pick something up, and so that's kind of how those shows came about. I'm not going to say that I don't know that either one of us, other than the episodes that our songs were in, have seen those shows either.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat to know that our stuff fits in certain genres and certain things, because that's one thing that we've always been kind of, where's the best place for us?
And I think serendipity came into play with Zoe's lyric writing, song naming, and it happened to just be like, oh, bang, vampires, yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sound that I heard on the Beware album. I mean, I immediately thought of cinema. I mean, and that's a great way for bands to make money now, because as you know, being a band, it's harder and harder to make money, and harder and harder to, with the whole paradigm shift on how record companies are, lack of record companies, or self-publishing, or whatever you guys are doing. It's difficult for a lot of the bands I talk to anyways, and being able to license something, I mean, that's great. And your sound lends itself to that kind of sci-fi, Hunger Games / Game of Thrones. I mean, it's right there. So good luck with all that, because I think there's a lot of bands that are leaping on other bandwagons, and you guys staying true to yourself like that, I mean, that'll work in the long run for you, I think.
We're hoping so.
Yeah, put music first above anything else than trying to find a shortcut to like momentary recognition. It's better to just do what's in your heart. Go to bed at night, know you did the best job you could with that.
Yeah, you got to just nourish your fan base, I mean, that's who you got to treat like nobody else, and they'll take care of you if you do that. So,
yeah.
And so, in releasing the song per month thing, I mean, are you literally going to release songs for the 10 months or however long it would take, or are you gonna, at a certain point, just release the record? I know it said you were releasing it in vinyl, a limited pressing.
Yeah, we kind of came up with this idea just to try, and we spent the last better part of a year recording the record, and kind of felt ourselves a little out of the loop a little bit with and starting to get disconnected from our fans that we kind of got from the EP, and then we're trying to come up with different ways that we can stay connected, and I think that people's music attention span has started to got throttled back so much that releasing a whole album for a band that has such limited outreach at the moment like we do is maybe. We were looking for alternative ideas. So this idea of maybe doing one song per month off the record until it all comes out, and in hopes that whatever, how that process kind of starts to snowball, so that by the time the whole thing is out, or we get to a certain point where half of it's out, or what, I'd like to say we have a very specific plan of how we're going to do it, but that's kind of how we're structuring it, and we're going to kind of play it by ear as it goes. We got the vinyl, and we're kind of sitting on that, waiting until we feel it's the best time to let it go.
Are you guys a big fan of vinyl?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Very
I know
much.
a lot of bands that they're releasing on vinyl, and they're actually having a hard time because there's less and less vinyl pressing places. So so they're all backed
Yeah.
up. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, we're actually our plant of manufacture is in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
We had to go cross continental to get the good stuff.
Seriously, wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I was actually I was listening to a story on NPR a couple weeks ago, and they were saying that of all of the different sources for like albums to music sales in general, the only market within that is actually picking up steam and like making like a good a good profit is vinyl. Like downloads are way down because of Spotify and other companies like that, and no one buys CDs anymore. So vinyl is like the only type of thing that's actually making money.
Yeah,
But vinyl works for us too, because I think it fits with our kind of general aesthetic and the idea that we want to kind of, make the most out of anything that we produce. So the idea that we can release something in a large format with artwork that people actually have to be active in as a participant in listening to and appreciating, that kind of works for what we're trying to do.
No, it definitely does, and you guys could make like a pop-up album, instead of a pop-up book.
That'd be awesome.
Why didn't we think?
But when I was reviewing your album, it was funny because I would find myself stopping and having to figure out what song I was listening to, because it's such a dreamy type of album, and the way each song has kind of a little arc and it changes, and it kind of goes from point A to point B in a very circuitous route. I mean, it's all over the place, and so I would have to go, what song is this? But it didn't. It was never boring. It just kind of just went through, and before I knew it, I was through it. And you can just like listen to it endlessly, because of that. So it has a nice, I guess, a rhythm. The whole album, it doesn't have a song that kind of feels out of place or anything like that. So I know. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said that's awesome. That's really nice to hear.
Oh yeah,
It worked, though.
Yeah.
I really wanted to have that sense of like adventure, like you are going on a trip throughout different dimensions. And,
yes, definitely.
A little bit of like colorful painting. So I'm glad that it feels that way to at least one listener.
When you said in your article, you said it first listen feels like it could potentially be a concept album, but then when you get deeper, you realize each song is a concept album in and of itself.
Yeah.
I think we probably all jumped up and down at that. That was really
that was the design.
hit the mark for us.
Well, that's what it felt like to me, because it did feel like a concept album, and I thought, is this a concept album or not? And then I realized some of the songs were, have been around a while, and I thought, well, maybe it's not. But then I realized that as I was losing place on the album, that that the songs were really cool. They had like little, story arcs and everything. I mentioned in the review that at the very end, Zoe, your voice kind of changes. Like it almost sounds, everybody has their own vocal style, and their vocal style changes. And we talked about Bowie, and he's has different almost characters in the way he sings, even though you always know it's him. And
Right.
and it felt like there was a certain almost a persona, and then it kind of stripped away, and it was just more your, I wouldn't say your natural voice, because I don't know what your natural singing voice would be, or what, I don't know what I'm saying, but it seemed a little different, and it was really, to me, I noticed it, and I don't know if it was intentional or not intentional, or if I even picked up something that wasn't there. But did that resonate with you in any way, or?
Yeah, that was a very, very intentional thing. I think the ending of that song, like when it was written, was kind of intended to be like you know, like when you're a little kid and you're kind of just in your own world and you just kind of are singing to yourself a little bit to keep yourself company, I guess.
Ah, okay.
Maybe I'm the only kid that did that, but it's just a very I don't know how to say it. It's just like being kind of alone as a little kid and just like being in your own head and keeping your, you know, your thoughts are keeping you company, and it's kind of like reverting back into just a lonely childhood thing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it was really, you know, it was a cool way to end the album, you know.
That was another moment where we all jumped up and down when we read that, because that was something that we'd spent a lot of time discussing about how we wanted to approach that end, and having it totally stripped back and showing some vulnerability with Zoe's performance, and that it was we felt it was a really powerful way to end it, and to hear you, like, you know, hear someone realize that really meant a lot for us. It's a feather in our cap. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people, when they listen to it, they'll feel the same thing, and you know, I want to apologize right now for the typos and the.
Don't even worry about it. We've been calling Ollie Nikon for the last 24 hours. It's been great.
That's our nickname, and we're all for it.
Yeah.
Well, how do you pronounce your last name?
Niku.
Niku?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then the big faux pas was getting the name of the song incorrectly, and I'm kind of notorious for not doing a lot of proof checking and all that, and writing reviews like.
After the way you wrote that poetically, you can call the song or my last name, whatever you want. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll take it.
Okay. But anyways, no, I think that that ending it really sticks with you, and I listened to it several times, and but it's neat to hear a song that feels kind of cohesive, because I listen to a lot of music, and and lately, as I mentioned, I've been listening to a lot of more raw sounds. I got into like garage rock as a matter of I don't know why, but I was really into produced music, you know, and all of a sudden something clicked in my brain, and I wanted to listen to kind of like beginning bands when they're kind of in their embryonic state and they play really shitty and stuff like that. And there's a certain coolness about that too. And so I was living at the time. I live in Georgia right now, but last August I moved out here. But before that, for 4 years, I was hovering around the whole Burger Records area and the FYF Fest in LA, and hanging around the Echo and the Smell and all those kind of places. And so, you know, you guys kind of pulled me back into a different sound, and it made me kind of pull out some old records and things like that. So it's definitely all kinds of music is good to me, as long as it's good music and it, you know, touches me in some way. So I think there's a big umbrella there for everybody. I was reading that you had now, Zoe, you originally from LA, and then it said that you were in Tennessee for a while. And
yeah, I lived in Knoxville for 3 years.
And what brought you out there?
It was kind of an accident. I dropped out of art school and wanted to take a trip across the country by myself, just photographing like deteriorating architecture and scenery and stuff like that. And I drove through Knoxville, and I stayed there for a few days, and it felt good. So I just didn't go home, and I ended up staying there for 3 years, and in the process, writing some songs and getting into music again, which I had kind of fallen out of for a few years.
Ah, well, that's interesting. And then did you the current members of the band, was that all? I mean, how did you find each other? Were you looking for musicians because you were putting a more band sound to your music, or was it just, you know, more friends got together and that kind of thing, and musician friends?
I think when I moved back from LA, I wanted to do more of a band thing. I had known Ali for, I think, 10 years or so, and I'd known John for maybe 7 or 8 years also, because I used to go to his band shows and Ollie's band shows all the time. And actually, John and Rob used to be in the same band, but at different times. So that's kind of how I met both of them, was in the same band, but they were in the band a few years apart.
Ah.
But yeah, when I moved back to LA, I sent out some messages and some posts saying that I was looking for band members, and these guys answered the call.
Well, what I found pretty cool was when I saw some of your live stuff on YouTube. You guys get a really full sound. I mean, when you listen to the album, you would think that there's a lot more. I mean, it is, you know, I know there's extra tracks and then it's produced and all that stuff, but you don't hear a huge difference when you guys play live. At least the songs I've heard. So I think that's really cool. I'm kind of sorry to say that I hadn't heard about you earlier. There's so many bands and music that I haven't heard. You know, sometimes that's my big failing. But
there's so much of it now.
Yeah,
don't feel too bad.
There is. But you guys have been doing a lot of having success for a while, and actually, like I said, this is more my big introduction. And I think I when I started listening to it, I was thinking, I think I've heard some songs before, but I didn't really, you know, embrace it or absorb it all. So I'm a little behind the boat here with you guys, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that with the sound, when I get so many submissions, even though I'm a relatively small blog, and not a huge blog at all, but when I get submissions, one thing I do all the time, I mean, and is I try to find live performances, because for some reason I don't care to, and maybe this is not right, but I don't have a real interest in listening to music that isn't performed live. You know, and I have featured some people who are just like one person and they do bedroom recordings, and the recordings are so good that I have to talk about it because I get excited about it. But overall, right, I like to know that when I'm writing about somebody that I could go see them live, because I mean the live experiences, that's what it's all about for me. So I like to see people who can really play their instruments well and all that stuff. And you guys, man, you guys have your chops down. You guys are really, really good, and that's great to see. So,
no, thank you. You know, we talked about that a lot too with this record. Like we try to make the recorded material and the live material both, you know, very, very impactful, but in completely different ways. Like we don't want to be one of those bands where when you go see us live, you could just be playing the CD. Like we want it to be a completely different experience, but just as cool.
Right. No, you want to have somebody who's able to do a little jammy or change things up. No, definitely. That's as an audience member, I can tell you that I don't want to see it like somebody, like it sounds like they're just playing the record, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, I wish you all the luck in the world, and I wish I wrote for a larger publication. So to spread the word, but you know, that's up to you to you know, spread that article around. But I know that you're going to get a lot of positive feedback, and have already from other blogs and whatnot. I sometimes write for LA Record, and
oh wow,
and sometimes they will simul-post. I call it simul-post thing. So I'm going to go ahead and send the review over to them, and also I know people of at Consequence of Sound, so maybe maybe it can get spread it to somebody who has a bigger outreach. You know, my blog is now a one-man operation, which is me, and with as much as I work, it's hard to do as many posts as the big boys do. I am happy to say that people have found out about American Pancake, you know, all over the place, and contact me from the all over the world. So it's getting a little bit better than it was. I have about average of 10,000 views a month, something like that. So, but I hope that whatever I've written, that if it inspires one person to check you guys out who don't know about you, I hope that occurs, because it's really great stuff. You probably have this same reaction or feeling, but you know, I know that you have friends in other bands, or you know of other bands where you go, why the hell aren't those guys like on Saturday Night Live or whatever? You know, I mean, they're just. Right. And then you see other bands and you kind of shake your head. And I have that sense with you, like, why aren't these guys on, you know, on performing on SNL or whatever? Because you guys are, in my opinion, for the type of the genre you do, you're better than a lot of people that have that you know, are kind of ahead of you, I guess. But so I think you guys are on your way, and again, I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you so much.
Nice job, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah.